Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for JoJo's Bizarre Adventures Part 5, Golden Wind. And I thought this was okay. I don't think there was anything particularly horrendous about it. It just really... Well, it didn't kind of grab me in kind of like the other ones, but I don't think that this is a bad one. It's just I didn't connect with as much of the cast as I usually do when I'm watching different kind of JoJo parts. But I do think that the overall beginning premise of it was interesting. Of like, hey, what if Dio Brando had a kid when his head was attached to Joestar's body, and that kid went to Italy and wanted to fight an Italian mob family because of drugs and stuff in 2001. It's like, okay. And that's the real bit. Giorno Giovanna, Dio's son, is the main kind of full character that I got throughout this, and I really liked him and liked learning about him and all his overall objectives. Same with Bucciarati. He was a very interesting and complex character, and I really liked seeing their relationship kind of evolve. Even though, as it went on, I kind of needed a little bit more explanation of kind of what happened to Bucciarati after this one thing. But it doesn't completely and utterly derail it. It still hits the emotional payoffs that kind of need to happen. So, to kind of get that together, we see that Koichi is sent to Italy by Jotaro Kujo, of course, the one character from Part 4 and one character from Part 3, to figure out kind of what's going on, because he wants to make sure that, like, Dio's legacy is kind of done. And they're like, if he's got a kid that can use stands and stuff, we gotta watch out for that. And, of course, we see him being kind of like a ladies' man and everything, and he kind of tries to screw over Koichi by, like, taking his suitcase and stuff. And they eventually get into a stand fight, and they're like, okay, this is kind of weird. But of course, Giorno's trying to, like, get to him and everything, trying to figure out everything. But he is also tasked with doing this one kind of test in order to get into the Passione family, because Bucciarati came to him because he had screwed over this one kind of, would say he's a low-level mafioso, but he kind of was even lower than that, if you want to do it. Leaky Eye Luca. Fuck. Okay. Because he got into a tuffle with that dude, and he had to, like, do this thing with this, like, lighter. But the thing is, it got into a thing where it accidentally killed a janitor and everything, and Koichi and Giorno were able to stop the thing from doing any more damage and everything. And Koichi's like, alright, you're cool, I'll relay it to my other peeps, and you're pretty much good. So that kind of finishes off kind of like centralizing where we are in this story, because otherwise, if we were thrown in, we're like, okay, we just came off Part 4, which was pretty much set in Japan and dealt specifically with, like, the Jonathan Joestar line, and, granted, like, bastard offspring and everything, but now we're like, okay, what are we doing in Italy? And it was really kind of cool for them to bring in Jotaro and Koichi like that without having them, like, be gigantic parts. This is definitely Giorno Giovanna's story. So, of course, he passes the test for the capo, but the thing is, he does not like that civilians were killed with this, and transforms one of his guns into a banana, and as he's trying to eat it, he accidentally kills himself, because that's one of Giorno's things that he can do with his stand, Golden Wind, that he can turn inanimate objects into life forms. And that becomes really important, because he's essentially becomes our, like, healer slash kind of tank dude, where he can take a lot of damage and, like, heal people as well. It's like, yeah. And then, of course, we see Bucciarati's as Zipper Man. I was watching this on, like, Toonami, so if stand names are a little bit different, sorry about the different kind of translations. Because I also saw, like, certain things when I was looking them up was, like, sticky fingers or whatnot, I think. But his is a pretty damn good stand as well. You see them used very creatively in different kind of combat scenarios. So, they're pretty much trying to figure out, he's getting him kind of acclimated. introduces him to his stand-wielding gang, because we see that the arrow is kind of brought back in the beginning part to kind of bequeath stand powers to people. We do learn more about that towards the, like, almost at the complete end of the series. It's like, okay, alright. So, we get introduced to their group, Narancia, which, he's just kind of more of a dumb hothead who kind of goes off crazy. Pretty much hasn't finished school. He keeps getting, like, bullied with everything. We got Abakio, who is an ex-police officer who pretty much got, like, dragged into that everything and trying to figure out all the stuff with the corruption, and it resulted in the death of his partner, and he became very disillusioned and got brought up with Bucciarati. And Bucciarati wants to reform what's going on as well. He is very aligned with Giorno's goal as well. Now, granted, they kind of feel each other out on this as the series progresses, but you're like, okay, Bucciarati's pretty cool. Abakio is pretty cool with his Moody Jazz one, where he can, like, kind of see what happens in the past with how far back he sets it. Narancia's is like Little Bomber, which is just like this plane that he can control and see people from breathing. We see Mista, which has 6 bullets, but he's got a missing number because it's an unlucky number for him. Those are pretty interesting. And Fugo with like this Purple Haze one, which was like an OP one that's like a poison kind of one. That gets used up a little bit, but then he kind of gets like shafted out because you can tell that they're like, what do we do with this guy? Got nothing. Jack him. Take him out. And it's like, alright. I had no beef with them, but I'm just like, okay, cool. So we kind of get introduced to them. They're pretty much on a way to do a job for the boss. They do some weird kind of like dance thing because they're getting targeted by these people. It's like, what the fuck? And they eventually get to one of these islands and figure out that they are tasked with the boss, the shadowy figure over the family, with escorting his daughter to him. It's like, okay, cool. We're introduced to Trish, and she's got like this bright pink hair and everything, and is pretty much like a spoiled brat. And by the way, these people are like all high school age. Granted, it's the bread and butter of JoJo's, so I'm just like, I ain't seen nobody like that when I was in high school. Okay, but she's like the typical kind of spoiled brat at the beginning before things start kind of like going crazy, and she kind of starts bonding with the group and everything, and she's pretty much just been trying to figure out what's been going on with her whole life, because her mother's dead and they're trying to get her to her father, but we'll have to see kind of how that works out. So while they're doing that, they get this fucking turtle that they can go into. It's like, well, it's not exactly into the turtle. There's a key that goes into the turtle's back, and then they go in, and it's like a little pocket dimension thing. It's like, alright, that's a very handy, cool thing to have. And they need that because there's this group of assassins that is trying to figure out the boss's identity and take his ass out, because they've been targeted by the boss as well. And it's really kind of crazy. You always have to watch out for when you have those like kind of assassination groups, and they pretty much take up the bulk of like the middle of the series as they're having their fights and trying to dodge them and all that and figure out what's going on. And while they're kind of getting through that, we get to a point where Trish unlocks her own stand, Spicy Lady, and she gets it, but she really doesn't do much with it. It's really kind of a missed opportunity, in my opinion. Now, granted, I understand that there's an ensemble cast, but she's kind of one of those key components that I wish they'd explored a little bit more. So that way we get some character development for her. I just wanted to see her use her stand a little bit more. It's like, okay, cool. She does get a pretty cool thing with, like, using its heat-based powers and everything, fighting off this weird fucking crazy-ass stand. But I kind of wanted a little more with her. So they eventually get to the point where they are going to hand off Trish, and Bucciarati's the one that's going, and he's like, alright, this stuff's gotten a little bit weird, we're going to have to figure out what's going on. But we see that she pretty much gets taken from him in the place, and he's like, this isn't right. And because him and the rest of the guys have bonded with her, and we see that Jorno starts figuring out that some things are going kind of weird because the instructions said that only one person was to accompany Trish into the tower and to then have her handed off to the boss. And we find out that the boss is there to take her out so that way his power and everything, nobody knows who he is, he's safe. He thinks of this as a loose end. Bucciarati's like, I ain't having any of that shit, and tries to fight him, but he is vastly underprepared to fight Emperor Crimson, who can obliterate time. So he can like see different kind of things and just like stop them. Reminiscent to Dio's and Jotaro's a little bit, but it kind of works out because we learn that the boss's name is Diavolo, and that he's like a split personality with this other dude, Doppio. And he was born under strange-ass circumstances, kind of around the same time that everything that was happening with Part 3 and all that. And we see that he's really messed up, and that really helps out because we see that the stand mainly does the talking when Doppio is the one in control of the body. And it's like, okay, this dude thinks that he's pretty much a god and pretty much tries to take out Bucciarati, but is half successful because Giorno is there and kind of heals him. See, this is where I kind of got a little bit confused because I understand that Bucciarati was trying to stop this and he pretty much was dead, but Giorno was somehow able to kind of bring him back, but he doesn't feel the injuries that he should, and it really starts messing with him with like how his body works. We find out that he's pretty much been dead since that time, but he's still going on to get his friends through this last bit. Because after this, Bucciarati's like, this boss needs to be taken down. I understand why these people were kind of going after him, but then the boss starts going after them, and this is where Fugo does not join them on their crusade against the boss to learn out more about what's going on. So then we get into this last portion where they start trying to gather information. We see that the whole bit with Diavolo and Doppio taking out pretty much the kind of rest of the assassins that are after him. The risotto fight was actually pretty good, and how he was able to use Emperor Crimson and actually use Narancia's little bomber to kind of help him take out Risotto was actually kind of ingenious. It really showed why he was an effective antagonist towards here. I really enjoyed seeing the back and forth between them as they were doing this. And we see them that they get information from this mystery kind of source to meet them in the Colosseum in Rome. And they have to deal with this really crazy stand user that's just like the dude with this what was it? Some kind of fungal thing that was just like disgusting, and his weird crazy underground dude that was nutty. And a really good fight because you had to creatively think of how to defeat him, and Giorno fucking straight up did it well. So we see that Doppio is also trying to get to the Colosseum as well, but he used those two kind of people to pretty much stopgap him to try and get there first. But he was unsuccessful. However, he was able to kind of link up with Bucciarati, even though he's pretty much in the death throes of him losing sight. He could tell that somebody similar to Trish was nearby because Doppio's aura gives off a similar one to Trish. And that was how he was able to kind of deceive him. As long as he wasn't in his Diavolo form and in control, Bucciarati didn't know what was going on. So they get in there, and we find out that the person contacting them with information is Polnareff from Part 3, and he has been fucked over. Like, I was like, oh, cool, we'll get Polnareff. This will be kind of cool. Holy fucking shit. Him and Jotaro were trying to, like, figure out what was going on with this dude, and this dude fucked him up. Like, he's in a wheelchair. He's, like, lost some limbs and shit. He's got, like, one of the arrows, and we got the information dump that these arrows had this kind of virus, and that was the thing that kind of unlocked the stands, survival of the fittest kind of thing, still linked with the Hamon thing. It was almost as if they went the prequel route, and we're like, here's this scientific understanding of why the stands do what they do, kind of like midichlorians and like the overall view of the Force in the prequels. Granted, I think it was done a little bit better here. I understand what they were trying to do with that in the prequels. I'm just like, screw it. See, and the other thing is JoJo's goes off the rails and kind of does its own thing. So I'm like, that's kind of weird and that's kind of stupid, but it kind of fits with JoJo's. Not stupid, but I'm like, okay, it didn't affect my enjoyment. I'm like, all right, just keep on going. We got people that can obliterate time and shit with these like magic stands behind them. Let's kind of go for it. It just fits within JoJo of like the crazy ass insanity that goes on. And the thing is, Polnareff pretty much was going to get killed by Diavolo, as we see. Normally, we'd seen the body in Doppio's form. But then he goes into, like, the Diavolo one, and it's definitely a marked difference of how the character is carried. And even the whole design is like, damn, that's pretty good. So he pretty much kills Polnareff, but Polnareff was able to get the arrow to his Silver Chariot, but it, like, went in Silver Chariot and kind of, what do I want to say? Turn him into his Requiem form as we get kind of understanding how this could then upgrade stands. Kind of like Super Saiyan forms, like Super Saiyan 2, but I don't even know if Super Saiyan 2 is the accurate kind of description. It would be more like going from Super Saiyan to Super Saiyan God. Because that's how much of a power differential it becomes. Because then it becomes Silver Chariot Requiem and gains the ability of like switching souls. Which then leads to the funny bit of like everybody switching bodies, and Mista and Trish switch bodies and they're all freaking out, and that was a pretty funny bit. They did a really good job with that. And we see that Polnareff, before he kind of died, was put into a turtle. And it's just like, okay, go with it. But you're fucking over Polnareff a lot. I was like, I don't mind bad things happening to characters. I'm like, oh shit, that kind of sucks. And I'm like, damn! Polnareff, yeah, had some weird shit that he did in part 3, and he was lucky to get out of certain things that he did. But this is just like, I'm gonna course correct that. I'm like, fuck, man. Damn, you turned him into a turtle, bro. Shit. And we see that Silver Chariot Requiems is hella powerful and has switched a lot of people around, like the Coliseum. They went to sleep, woke up, fucking dude was in a dog's body, dog was in a dude's body, baby was in the mom's body, mom was in the baby's body, everybody's freaking the fuck out, which, understandable. I'd be like, yeah, I'd freak out too. That is actually the correct response in this situation. Then we see everybody kind of like switched up and everything, but we see that Diavolo / Emperor Crimson kind of stand dude had latched on to somebody, and we're trying to figure out kind of like who it is and where else he's hiding, because we start losing people. We have lost like a Bacchio, because of how he was able to kind of figure out the boss's identity. Here we lose Narancia, and that really sucked. But it allowed Giorno to get back into his body, which really helps out as things are going on. But he wasn't able to save Narancia. We see that Bucciarati is in Diavolo's body, and they're like trying to figure out what's going on. They have to stop Silver Chariot Requiem. And he's just kind of like walking off and doesn't really respond to anything until somebody tries to get the arrow from his ass. And then, of course, we start this fight with Diavolo trying to get it, pretty much hiding in Trish / Mista, and doing pretty much fucking up Trish a lot by like punching through her stand / soul. But she was okay. I thought Giorno was gonna have to like heal her and stuff like that. But we get into the fight. Giorno is able to get a hold of the arrow and gets it into Golden Wind, and that was a pretty cool scene. Finally seeing Golden Wind Requiem, and even we weren't really completely explained what was going on with the transformation, because we see Diavolo pretty much like, I win, I am a god, but Requiem's able to undo everything that he did, even though he can obliterate time, and is able to stop him and pretty much put him within a repetitive loop of always dying in these crazy ways because he thought himself a god and did not think of the consequences of murdering so many people and destroying so many lives with doing all the drugs and everything and all the corruption with the police force and the government. And he was given that back. As we see him dying over and over and going through all these different hells, I'm like, yep. And during this part, we see that Giorno has more of a kind of traditional Dio kind of look, but he still has the goodness of the Joestars within him as well. He does not succumb to temptation and power. And we even see that it is Golden Wind Requiem that is talking to him and be like, even my user does not know the full extent of my powers. And, talking as in Giorno's voice and everything. It was like really kind of cool to be like, yeah, you got screwed. Of course, everybody gets switched back to their bodies. Mista's like, come on, we gotta go heal Bucciarati. But Bucciarati was the one to kind of help Giorno get into the position that he needed to get the arrow. And, of course, the arrow then goes back out, and he's kind of like one to protect it now. And Bucciarati was like, there you go, Giorno, as he goes off to join the rest of them in the afterlife. And the weirdest part, I know it sounds strange to say that, there's like this one part where this dude uses a stand to make a baby thing. It's like, what? There's a lot of fucking weird stands in this one, but they're really kind of cool, and they do a lot of different kind of nice action scenes. I enjoyed the action scenes. It's just like, I kind of enjoyed the other parts better. Not that these are bad. I'm just like, okay, cool. So, the end part of this really kind of confused me. Not so much as in what happened, but why someone's like, okay, we just got done with this epic battle. Let's get our denouement down and kind of like wrap up this action, kind of end this. Their idea to do it is to essentially go back into the beginning and have them deal with this one dude with this rock that can like predict people's deaths and stuff. And just like, what? I want to know how Giorno tells Mista and Trish that Bucciarati's dead and that Diavolo and Doppio are dead and taken care of, and what their whole plans are for taking over Passione and stopping all the horrendous things that they've done. No, we see Mista and Bucciarati dealing with this sculptor stand dude because this dude's like, hey, my daughter, she killed herself. Can you help me take out the dude that did it? And to find out it wasn't the dude, it was more the stand. The stand revealed to her that she was going to have the same disease and that her father now has and will get progressively worse, and she wants to have her be in kind of like a better kind of condition so that way her organs and everything can be donated. It's like, wow. And the thing is, it was supposed to take out Bucciarati, but Mista was able to kind of stop it, but not before it kind of split out and showed Bucciarati, Abbacchio, and Narancia dying instead. And then we get to the end, and we see that Polnareff is still in the turtle, and it'll just be around for a little bit, but that we see that Giorno has taken over the head, has this black outfit now, which is a nice outfit change. But it doesn't completely make him look evil. I'm like, nice, because I liked his outfit that we've seen throughout the story a lot. And then Mista's is more in a kind of purple one. Kind of works out because it kind of relates to kind of like Romans that used to wear purple as kind of like a sign of royalty and kind of like upper status. So that kind of fits within that. And also, of course, monarchs throughout the rest of history kind of use purple to signify royalty as well. So it kind of interesting to kind of see him do that. Now, granted, they could have just been like, hey, purple's a kind of cool-ass color. I'm like, all right, cool digs. And then we just see fucking Polnareff chilling as a turtle. I'm like, oh, okay. All right. It's not a horrible ending. I'm just like, we went off on a side thing that we really didn't need, and then we're just like, here's Giorno becoming the head of Passione. And I'm like, I kind of wanted more of that to kind of wrap up. I'm like, it's not horrible. Just like, all right, cool. So I'm interested to see how he factors into anything of any other parts, because I really like his character and he's a nice addition to the Joestar lineage, while also kind of like still keeping Dio kind of attached, but it's more like Dio's like the Joestars have calculation as well, but he's like the goodness of the Joestars with the calculating kind of nature of Dio. It's like, yeah, that's a force to be reckoned with. So, I think this was an interesting one, mainly with the character depth and development that went with like Giorno, Bucciarati, and to a lesser extent Trish, while being up against Diablo, who was an interesting antagonist, and then all the other different kind of stand users that had pretty fun action scenes, but I, again, enjoy most of the other kind of JoJo parts more than this. Not that this is a bad one. You really do need to see all the other kind of JoJo parts to really get the full effect of this. So, if you just want to watch this one, that's not bad. You'll miss out on certain kind of things, but I mean, I still think you'd be able to enjoy it. You'll just get more enjoyment if you watch all the other different parts as well. It's really kind of strange because I could almost say that like each part, if you wanted to watch one, you could, but you'll get much more enjoyment if you kind of go in the sequential order and kind of learn everything going on and see how everything connects, and it just really works pretty well. And I really want to see what other kind of JoJo stuff that they're going to do next. So those are my opinions on the anime. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.